Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, and with me are my fellow fantastic, amazing co-hosts, Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Gentlemen, I feel like I haven't given you enough love the last couple of weeks, so there you go. You've gotten your quota for January, starting a new month.
January, you know bro. What? Where January?
I'm saying that I didn't give you enough love last month, so now I'm backpedaling and giving you all the appreciation that I should have given you before.
Yeah, you just kind of like to just be like, Derek Brissett, Stu Hardy. Oh, by the way, this super awesome person that we're going to spend an hour to talking to. You don't need to. I feel like we haven't even caught up or anything. How was your Christmas, Dan? I feel like we haven't actually had a conversation.
Busy. Yeah. Is Christmas in a pandemic? You know.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about Christmas here. This is far too past, but.
No, my daughter's at that age where Christmas is exciting.
No, Dan, we don't have to talk about Christmas.
That's great. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Listen, guys, we got a lot to talk about because we are actually recording on a Thursday night because so much stuff has kind of dropped in the last couple weeks, or even within this last week, and we're going to get right into it. With the dropout of the Dallas.
Even let Stu talk after all this time, after all that, too. What you're saying, giving it a do. Stu, how are you today, man?
I'm doing well, but Dan, if you'd like to continue, by all means.
After the Dallas Jackals dropped out of MLR for the season, prolonging their debut to 2022, the league had a little bit of messing around to do with the schedule, and they released it yesterday as of this recording. Highlights of the schedule. The Arrows now play every MLR team. They were going to miss out on a couple, but with the realignment, we've got Houston, we've got the Giltinis, which I know that DTH, when he was on our show, said that he was excited to play the Arrows, so that'll be a fun game to watch. Their bye weeks have changed. I actually like how the byes have changed for the Arrows, going from round 1 and round 9 to round 10 and round 18. Gentlemen, what's your favorite fixture you're looking forward to? Do you like how the byes kind of lined up for the Arrows? How are we feeling about this new schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think Major League Rugby did a great job with kind of what they had here. Obviously a team dropping out just a couple weeks out realistically from the start of the season, or I guess 2 months really, but like dropping out so close to the season and had to do a lot of reshuffling. Obviously, the fact that the Jackals would have been the 13th team, dropping that back to 12 just simply meant you need like a full restructure, like this, and which is kind of what we got. The schedule, as far as the actual fixtures are concerned, look nowhere close to what the original schedule was. I do kind of like that. It's nice to it's sort of nice to see that the they kind of went back to the 10 games against your conference, 6 games versus the opposite conference. If you're gonna if the 12-team league is kind of the sweet spot for that, so MLR fans, you kind of get to see a little bit of everybody again, provided you're actually allowed to go to a game. You can see a little bit of every team once again. I'm the one thing, like you mentioned there, Dan, the bye weeks for the Arrows, I do kind of dig the round 10. I like that sort of like halfway through the season. That's a nice one. The interesting bye week, though, I feel, was round 18, which will obviously be the week before the semifinal. And it I don't know if it's just kind of like, you're just kind of like reading into it, right? Like, the previous, like you can kind of, looking at who got week 18 buys, and it's like it's Toronto and San Diego. So like it's kind of like
big expectations for them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. Is that just like MLR being like, here's some like fun, like we're not doing first round buys in the playoffs anymore, but here we'll give the two teams that everybody anticipated to be in the final in 2020. You guys get week 18 buys. And yeah, so I think it should be fun. Favorite fixtures that you're looking forward to, Dan, since you asked, it was like it's I guess based on what the schedule was last year or whatever, the first rendition of what the schedule was, I guess I could look at it and be like, it's cool to see the Giltinis and Houston as kind of new fixtures added. And then, every other fixture I think just kind of falls into place with, you know, the same hype and excitement that it was initially. The one interesting thing though is the game against San Diego being shifted back into like what is it, week 12?
Yeah.
June 6th.
Sorry?
June 6th.
June 6th, yeah. So getting pushed back that far. So it's like, that was supposed to be the week 2 matchup, which would have been San Diego's second game in Toronto's season opener. And as we said, like that was the much anticipated, like, I guess odds on favorite to be the final in 2020. And we never got to see that. We never even got to see if that is how the season would have played out. But it was kind of the early predictions. They were the two teams at the top of their conferences when COVID hit and canceled the season. And so I think that was kind of like, that was a really cool fixture to kind of have early on in the season, especially it being the Arrows' first game. And I don't know, I'm kind of looking at that and it's like, I wonder, who knows how the season's going to play out. And it's like, I kind of wonder if that game will kind of have the same spice to it being in like week 12. Right. So, if it's kind of, or if it will be even more hyped because we haven't seen this for a year and you're kind of also, and 12 weeks into the season, we're still talking about that being like the MLR final preview. So that'll be that. So I kind of think the placement of that game, I think, is an interesting twist. Overall, I think, we'll talk about the Arrows going to Atlanta in a little bit, and I'll kind of expand a little bit more on their the way that their home and away fixtures are actually kind of lined up there. But I think, yeah, like I think overall I dig the schedule. I like what MLR was able to do with it. It cannot be an easy task to completely redo a professional sport league schedule, basically on a moment's notice. And they pulled it off, and it's interesting. I mean, I like I like the way they kept like the 2 bye weeks and stuff in there, even though everyone's got reshuffled. I do kind of have one minor concern, but I'll let Stu lend his thoughts and then we can circle back and I'll see what you guys think about my one concern with the schedule.
Thanks, Derek. Well, yeah, I think it's a fantastic job done by MLR to get this new schedule out, because it could have very easily been just take the 2020 schedule, stick LA over where it says Colorado Raptors and call it a day.
It's not really how scheduling works, though. It changes.
No, but when you're pressed for time, then you've got to put something out. But I've actually checked a few of the games and like week replacements and things like that. And for the most part, a lot of teams that had home games at the start of the season, so especially in round 3, I think it is, most of them still retain the home status, so they will still play home games. It may be against different opposition. I think that week is all the games take place on April 3rd, so it's just a shuffle around of who's arriving from which airport at that point. So, and I think that's a great benefit to all the teams that are hosting on those days, so they don't have to, say everything gets shuffled around. Of course, with Toronto, home games may not be the same as what we imagined in theory, with the news that they're going to Atlanta. When it comes to games that I'm looking forward to, I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with obviously San Diego. I think we're still going to be hyped for that game because there's always the what if factor.
The matchups really haven't changed beyond, like, from an Arrows perspective, we get the LA Giltinis, which, as you DTH mentioned, that's something that he would have been hyped for. So I guess he gets that now. And we get to play the Pacific Pride, or the Houston SaberCats. So,
but I think as well is that, there's still the whole thing of San Diego have never beaten Toronto. So I still think the hype is always going to be in place. And especially if San Diego, say, have a bit of a rough patch or they lose a close game a few weeks earlier, they'll be looking to be like, right, this is the game that we have to focus for. This is our mini goal. Like, even if we were to finish bottom of the Western Conference, if we could beat Toronto, that'll be a scalp. Toronto, of course, have the same feelings towards NOLA, but they get 2 chances to have a go at them. I'm also interested to move over to the Western Conference for a second and talk about the Texan teams, because obviously there was meant to be 3, and now we've got the 2 that we had for 2020. Because I was really excited by seeing what would be the case with the Texas Cup. So the competition that is within MLR between the Texan teams. Would it be a mini table between those 3 teams? Now it's just going to be the home and away fixture between Austin and Houston, and maybe Houston are feeling a bit annoyed that the team that hadn't won for a year and a half up until that point finally broke that duck against them, and they'll be like, oh, okay, we want to get them back for that, because they'll be playing, I believe, if my notes are correct, in round 3, and then the reverse fixture in round 12, which will be the same week. I'm not sure if it's the same day as Toronto versus San Diego. But a game that I'm really looking forward to as well is the top of the 2020 Eastern Table clash between Toronto and DC. Because, we've had Doug Fraser on, and, we've seen from 2020, yes, they lost that game against NOLA, but then they went on a 4-match winning streak. And, it's one of those what ifs of, had they been able to play the full season, would they be challenging for the Shield in 2020? Because, they have a great lineup. They've made some great signings over the past few months. Obviously, they've lost Tendai the Bisam Tuera. So, they're filling in for certain things. But, I think that's going to be a fixture that we can all look forward to. And also, it's in the summer. And who doesn't love summer rugby?
I actually agree with Stu. That game I'm looking forward to. It's the July 4th. So, that's kind of, it's kind of sucks for Old Glory that they're not going to be having a home game. But I mean, depending where we are, if we're in Atlanta, then let's see a good game, and maybe the Arrows can pull out a cool alternate Canada-esque. The Wolfpack did really cool Canada jersey, something like that. That would be really cool. And then Old Glory can wear Star Spangled Banner jersey. I think that'd be really cool.
That's a default
jersey.
So I am looking forward to that game. They've got a little bit of Canadian flair on it. Like we've had, Doug and Kieran Hearns on the team, and somebody that we're going to talk about later just joined the team. So I'm looking forward to that July 4th fixture as well. And also it'll be near the end of the season. So if last season, is a precursor to this season, it'll be a close matchup for what could be number 1 overall in the conference. You said that you had a problem about the schedule. Now I'm curious about.
Yeah. So it's a little bit, I don't really think it's not a problem yet.
Oh.
Or it's hopefully not going to be a problem at all. But kind of looking at the schedule, right? And if you pull it up, like there's some weekends won't have games on one day, Saturday or the Sunday or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the schedule right now, it is 18 straight weeks of rugby. Your team gets 2 bye weeks mixed in there, but everyone's playing. There's games on all straight 18 of the weeks leading up to the final on August 1st, which, is probably locked into place just as TV contracts or whatever business deals have to be, that were signed. So there's probably, the few dates there that the league can't move away from. So in just though, watching the way the sports world has kind of developed in the past couple months here, my only concern about the schedule is if you have to postpone games, where do you make them up? Right. And we kind of saw in 2019 when Austin was unable to travel to Toronto that, they ended up having to play a makeup game, and that game ended up being on a Thursday night. And that was the week Austin happened to have a bye, but that resulted in the Toronto Arrows playing a Sunday, Thursday, Sunday over. So that's like an 8-day stretch where you play 3 games.
Well, and it's going to be really hard for teams like the Arrows and San Diego, who are not going to be based out of their home their typical home, and getting players to come in might be a little bit more difficult. Now, the San Diego's got a little bit more flexibility because I think it's only like a 3-hour drive from San Diego to Las Vegas. But if the Arrows have a situation like that occur where they play like, what was it, 3 games in like 10 days in that 2019 stretch?
Yeah.
How are they going to, like, they got to make sure that they've got enough guys and no one's hurt, because to have someone come in and
depth, man, depth will be a major factor. It's been a major factor in almost every sports competition so far.
What I'm saying is, like,
huge. Yeah,
it takes them a couple injuries,
the most
and
important thing in the league this year.
It takes them a couple injuries, and they're not going to be able to, like, I don't know what the isolating rules are going to be like. They haven't really talked about that, but between Canadians coming into the U.S., we've only really heard about the opposite. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Let's roll right into that. The Toronto Arrows have announced that they are relocating to Atlanta to start the season. If you've listened to our podcast the last like 4 or 5 months, really since the season ended, we kind of were talking about what the Arrows are going to do, and it really kind of started when we heard that the Blue Jays wouldn't be able to play in Canada. I myself did not think that they were going to be able to play in Canada. It just didn't seem like it was going to be possible, and lo and behold, this decision has been made. And I still have a lot of questions about it, for sure. I think that this was a good decision, and I would like to hear about how you guys feel about it. Partnering with Atlanta seems like a smart decision. They will be isolating, from an article Neil Davidson wrote. They will be isolating in a hotel, and then they'll kind of make a decision after that where they're going to be. So it sounds like they've got their, the situation kind of settled, but a lot of big questions. And I think some of my questions come from the situation that just occurred over the weekend with the NWHL having to cancel the rest of their season.
Well,
and part of the problem, sorry, Derek, I'm going to give you a chance to speak in just a second, but part of the problem why that broke down is the fact that they didn't have a hard bubble. So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on how hard is the Arrows bubble going to be when they're in Atlanta, and how do you guys feel about the move?
Well, I think, I'll get to like the Arrows to Atlanta in a second, but I think like that's part of why, like, seeing the NWHL and like it wasn't really a good bubble, or it wasn't even.
No, like players were out and about.
It wasn't
like shopping and stuff like that, and like I don't know what the mask, health and safety rules were like in Lake Placid, but the states have a lot less stricter rules than Canada does, and it just kind of imploded on himself, and it was 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think like in this past week, so it's like they canceled their season. The NLL canceled their season. So they're not going to play until the 2021-2022 season. And I mean, so we're recording this Thursday night, so February 4th, it's about 6:30, 7 o'clock right now. So it's like, even in the NHL right now, like I think it's the Devils, the Sabres, and
the Buffalo coach tested positive.
Yeah, they all can't play. So it's like those games are all postponed for like a week. They're gonna have to be made up at some point. And that's why, like, that's my only issue. It's like, yeah, and I think to me right now, that's the one thing that I would be waiting on from like the next MLR announcement, is just kind of like, what is the plan? Like,
are they even going to release a plan?
Yeah, like
that'll be an interesting thing to see as well.
Thing too, but it's like, I just, from like that player safety standpoint, right? What is the plan? And then, in the event of, say, a COVID case appearing on a team, like, what happens? Games postponed, that team can't play for a week or two. What happens to their games in the schedule? Do you try to squeeze them in on like, like that's the thing. It's like some of the weekends, I think there's only games on like the Saturday or only games on the Sunday or whatever. I'd have to take another look at it again. But it's like, if, I mean, it's not like you could be like, yeah, well, play the Sunday, because it's like, well, the team probably just played the day before, so you can't play back to back like that. So you're probably looking at a weekday kind of thing, but then you have to factor in stadium availability and everything too, right? And another, and possibly, flights and all that too. So that's the only thing. That's my only concern about the schedule, is just what happens. Because it's like, I think we've seen with the other leagues, even like the NFL, like it might not be a matter of like what happens if you have to postpone a game.
It's a matter of when. Games are going to get
when
we
and
need
how
to
many.
get comfortable with the idea that games are either going to be canceled or postponed.
Yeah, it's going to be right. That's my only question with the schedule, because it is on a bunch of weeks straight, and I understand that there's probably obligations of like they had to lock in certain dates for like the championship and stuff.
For sure.
And I mean, honestly, too, like why, like, keep the optimistic attitude, I suppose, that won't happen. It won't be a thing that you have to worry about, but realistically, it might be something that you got to worry about. So I would be curious to know what the plan is. And I wonder if something to that effect will be released, as far as just a little bit of clarity on that. But that's my only kind of concern with it. The arrows to Atlanta, I think makes a lot of sense. One, Eastern Conference city, so that's easy on travel for everybody in the Eastern Conference, which I mean, considering how much money and stuff teams are probably, losing by not being able to play games, or, certain, I guess some teams can play in front of fans depending on their local government's rules and regulations. But, I think, travel is a big expense for the league and for all the teams. So if you can kind of cut down on that a little bit. So keeping Toronto at the very least kind of on that East Coast in the East makes tons of sense. The Arrows last season did stay in Atlanta between their game with the Rugby ATL and before flying out to Colorado to play the Raptors. So I wonder if that kind of fostered a little bit of like the goodwill and a little bit of that like positive relationship between the two clubs. And it seems like, from all the quotes coming from like Scott Lawrence and Mark Winokur, it seems like the two teams have a pretty decent like working relationship. So hopefully that kind of helped to make it happen. Rugby ATL playing at Life University, there's obviously the access to gym facilities, the stadium. So I think that works. It makes a ton of sense. I still think though that the Arrows are still hopeful that they're going to be able to play home games at some point in Toronto. Again, whether or not that'd be in front of fans, who knows? But they're still kind of hopeful that it will happen. So I mean, who knows? It's weird. It's weird looking at like other sports and stuff. Like the NHL is kind of going to have like that same. I wouldn't really say have that same issue, but at some point, based on the fact that the NHL has that all Canadian division right now, but at some point, someone's going to have to cross a border in the playoffs. So that,
yeah,
I don't know.
I wonder if
something's got to happen to let that happen. At some point, someone's got to cross the border to make the playoffs. So I know the NHL is doing the first two rounds of the playoffs are within your division. So that means the Canadian team is playing each other. And then, at the end of the second round, like the Canadian team will probably celebrate so hard for being able to have that ultimate bragging rights of the best team in Canada. But after that, someone has to cross a border at some point.
I will say,
in order for that to happen. So maybe that opens a door for the MLR to be able to do it. I don't know. That's complete speculation.
I will say that it doesn't look good for the Blue Jays to start their season in Canada.
Yeah, but the
reports have said that
the NHL, realistically, the NHL is in a super unique situation compared to all the other pro sports leagues, in which they have 7 teams in Canada. So they're
you need to look more closer to this, like
the Raptors,
but the Raptors are the Blue Jays, really.
Yeah, my only thing is like, if at some point you're going to let a hockey team cross the border, hey, maybe at some point you can let a rugby team cross. It's hopeful.
They have a lot more money than
they do.
Rugby teams do.
But
Stu, how do you?
It's hopeful. They're hoping to do it. It's hopeful.
Yeah,
it's hopeful. Well, in Atlanta to start, it makes a ton of sense.
We have had Mr. Webb on the show, and we have listened to him speak about hopefulness, and I'm going to stay pessimistic. I'm sorry.
Optimism. Let's go.
Listen. I am seeing how the government is rolling out this vaccine program. I am seeing how cases are going in the province. Again, like you're right. Like it might not be fans there, so the vaccine thing might not be a problem. But I think that if you look at how the government has made decisions on how things are opening and closing, it is going to have a factor, even if there's no fans there.
It's of course. I mean, it's still the ongoing situation. It's like obviously they are going to Atlanta because you can't cross a border right now, and you probably shouldn't. So I mean, it makes perfect sense to go to Atlanta.
Maybe all the Arrows will get vaccinated while they're down in the States.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes sense. It's the way you have to do it. And I mean, I think everyone is in the same boat too. Like, I would much rather see Toronto play all their home games in Atlanta than like not play or any of the other like drastically bad alternatives. So, I think though the real question is, does the joke nickname become the Atlanta Arrows or Rugby TOR?
Like Rugby TOR. Stu, how do you feel about all this? How do you feel about his ridiculous suggestions for nickname? You made a really cool little logo and you posted on your social media. How do you feel about this, buddy? Because obviously we just kind of stated our opinions. I'm curious to how you feel about all this moving and shuffling.
I think it's a decision that had to be made out of necessity. If vaccine rollout had maybe started, say, mid-fall or mid-autumn last year, we would be in a better position now. Obviously, that wasn't possible because I don't think the first vaccines were approved until December. But it is what it is. You just got to make do with what you've got. Atlanta and Georgia as a whole, having been to Georgia now a decade ago, but it's still lovely. It's a beautiful place to be, and obviously much warmer than now. So I think that'll be greatly appreciated by team, the team players from the Southern Hemisphere, who are used to warmer weather at this time of year. When it comes to a protocol in place because of COVID and a bubble, it has to be a hard bubble, I think. I mean, just look at what happened in the UK this week when Josh Adams went to a gender reveal party.
Oh, boy, I forgot about that.
And now he's been banned from playing for 2 weeks, which means he won't be able to play for Wales until the third round. Now, if I could just make a tangent, if it had been the birth of his first child...
I feel like we're already on a tangent, but yes.
Okay, if it had been like the birth of his first child, I get that. If it had been a grandparent's, dying moments, again, understand completely. But Josh, a gender reveal party, come on, man. Also, like the things.
Also, not being upfront about it either doesn't look good either.
Yeah, it's
like if you just said, "Listen, there's this party I really want to go to. I don't care if I'm getting suspended." Maybe it would have been less time, but yeah, no, not.
Well, I think that's kind of the thing too. It's like for all the MLR players, like whatever the COVID rules are, please follow them. Like just
actually, I'm saying they have to be stricter. They have to be.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, obviously for the Arrows it's different because they can't just go home after a home game. They have to go back to the hotel, but they have to be they have to have not only the facilities where they can house and possibly like cook meals or things like that, but they also need to be able to have like the freedom to move around. I'm not saying this will be similar to like a Barbarian situation where they had a entire like banquet suite available for them to just mess around with, but there needs to be boundaries in place of what you can and can't do. And it, you may even have to have Mark Winokur being, like the head teacher is like, I don't care what the rules say for Georgia. In this team, if you want to play, you've got to follow these rules. And they have to be, you can't leave the hotel outside of training periods. You will have, increased access to, call family back home. And we'll provide you with like the means to, video call and things like that. But if you want to play, then you're going to have to stick to these things. And if we find that you're breaking these things, in the most serious case, we may even have to terminate your contract to play for the team because of such things. And then if that happens,
Let me put it to you this way. So the Curling Canada is starting their bubble in a few weeks, in 2 weeks, I believe. And if you break protocol, like it's even to the point where you can't even hang out with your teammates outside of your hotel room. You get to spend. You're on the ice with them.
Washington
and then
Capitals got dinged for that.
They got dinged.
Yeah,
here's the penalty.
Hotel party.
If you break your COVID protocol, you are banned from participating in the sport for 2 years.
Wow.
And this is leading up to the Olympic qualifier.
Harsh.
That is leading up to the Olympic qualifiers and the Olympics.
That's harsh.
Yeah.
Curling. So, wow, that is.
Yeah, they are taking
that is harsh.
That's harsh, but it's a serious situation.
So
that's a little. That's a little much.
Be in place.
Yeah.
So
that's a little much. I was
you need to take, but that's the thing. They want to be able to say the players have to take it seriously because these are the ramifications if they don't.
Wales probably also doesn't want Josh Adams out of their lineup for 2 years.
Also correct, but
that's a while, man. 2 years is a long time.
But that's the thing. Wales don't have to qualify for the World Cup, but Canada and the USA do, and Uruguay as well.
I mean, I'm not banning anybody for 2 years. I mean, geez, that's extremely harsh.
I don't think MLR is in a position to be able to ban them from playing for the sport, but it could be a case where they're banned from MLR for a year, and obviously
I wouldn't even do that. That's still harsh.
Players,
that's still harsh.
Yeah, but like
I think that
you could shut down this.
Guys,
like
would be.
We've seen how look at like the Ravens and the Broncos both just lost all their quarterbacks. Like they lost them. They just because of COVID. Because of one guy made a mistake. How bad would it be if one guy went out to a party and came practice the next day and got the entire pack shut down?
Oh yeah, no, it would be bad. No, that's what you have to follow.
I say it should be you're done for the season. That one guy that they were able to stuff out. Anyways, we are let's keep going, guys. I
also still want the season to happen though, so we need players to follow
the rules.
Don't
be a dickhead.
Just there you go. The old All Blacks one. Don't be a dickhead. Just be safe. Let's get as many games played as physically possible. And enjoy the 2021 MLR season to its fullest.
So another little bit of news that we got in the last week and a half from the Arrows is that they reloaded their home kit. Now, again, I was very passionate about this when we had our jersey episode and we talked about all the new kits and stuff like that. I was very hard on the Arrows for sticking with their 2020 home kit. And I'm very happy to see that they either chose not to listen to me or chose to listen to me. I'm not going to say that I influenced their decision making, but I'm very happy with what they ended up doing. Again, I didn't ask them. I love what Stu said the last time about, keeping things consistent for people in terms of, trying to cost save. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that the product is the right fit for your fan base. Like the Montreal Canadiens don't need to change their jersey lot because they've got a beautiful jersey. I don't think the Arrows were there yet. And obviously a lot of people agreed and voiced their opinions, and the Arrows listened, which again, it just shows you how top rate of an organization they are. And it has a collar and it's got that nice kind of stripe in the middle. Was their kind of with their away kit last year. So guys, how do you guys feel about it? Are you guys as satisfied as I am, or do you want more, or did you think the other jersey was fine? How do you feel about it?
Well, seeing as I bought what would have been the home jersey for the 2020 season, that was intended to carry over as the home jersey for the 2021 season, I'm in like a bit of two camps about this, because one, love the collar, fantastic. I think it's great. The white stripe, however, causes the main issue for me, which is that the Honda logo is now black. And I'm sure that corporate branding it can only be black or it can only be white. or possibly the red that Honda uses, but those are the only 3 choices they can have. And I just think the black Honda logo just
it was
breaks.
blue last year.
No, it was black.
Was it not blue? I thought it was blue on the white kit. I thought the Honda logo was blue on the white kit.
I'm about 75% sure it was black. But anyway, with the current kit, with this new kit, I think that black logo and the whole white band kind of breaks. Personally, I would have preferred it similar to the kit that's behind Dan at the moment, which coincidentally is the kit that I have, is if it had been solid blue, the white Honda logo, and then just a white collar. I think that would have been fine for me. Obviously, I'm not into sporting fashion or design or anything along those lines. But maybe an idea for 2022 as a proper guaranteed entire season in Toronto home kit.
The kit had white. The Honda was white.
Oh yeah, because the stripe was blue. They had the blue stripe over it. Right. It had the blue. What was that? The 2019, I think.
The 2019 away kit had black because I'm not going as well.
Yeah. All right. But well, either way, I'm happy. I'm stoked with it. I think it looks great. I'm happy with every kit that has a classic collar. I think every man. If I wonder if like other teams are kind of taking note of how popular the collars are, and it'd be nice to like kind of see them. That would be kind of a really cool like. Maybe like a global marketing thing for rugby, be the league that everybody has a classic old school collar in it.
Maybe that's the delay for LA is that they had a kit ready, but then they decided to put a collar.
It looked
hot pink. A hot pink collar would be so
nice. LA's kit looks too good, and then they were afraid that like the internet would just collapse under its power when it was revealed. So they let it go for like the public safety at that point.
There you go.
That's but smart. We will see that away kit when they come to play the Arrows this year. So
in Atlanta, we'll see it on TV because they'll be in Atlanta for that one. Yeah. But I guess I do like. Actually, I just kind of thought of it. Looking at the schedule or whatever, like. It'd be kind of cool, like if you're able to go to games in Atlanta, which I think you are, because I think they had games at like those like silver versus black, like 404 games. I think they had fans. You can like if you can go see every team twice.
Yeah,
like if you're
make a day out of it.
Yeah, but even at that, I mean, you looking at that, both Toronto and Atlanta are scheduled to play San Diego at home. You get to go you can go see Chris Robshaw twice if you're in Atlanta if you had the mind to do it. That's a bit of a tangent though, kind of going back.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep this ball rolling then, because we're going to quickly go through a couple things to end then the episode. A lot has been talked about at Glendale's crossover academy. We're not going to get into too much detail about it, gentlemen. But I do have a couple questions for you. And the first one is their time frame doing more bad than good? This was something that we, we've got a chat that we kind of talk about here and there, and we went back and forth about it. And we kind of came to the conclusion that in essence, it's a good idea, but they're putting a really tough time frame for themselves. Like 4 years before they want to be in the Pro 16. And they also want to have 4 or 5 guys on the World Cup roster as well. Like, yeah. That's a pretty tight timeline for you to take guys that have never played rugby before and put them, onto the 2 of the highest levels of rugby in the world.
Yeah, like I don't understand Rugby Town's mindset on this one at all. I mean, on one hand, like a positive thing, I'm never going to like discourage people from introducing new people to the game of rugby. If guys want, like, to the guys that are actually participating at the camp, I mean, like, honestly, best of luck to them. And I hope they like enjoy playing rugby. And at the very least, I hope they become fans of the sport for life. Regardless of how far their athletic ability can actually take them to do this. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole like crossover athlete idea. I think it takes a bit of like some special athletes to be able to like pull it off and do it well. And
I mean, we've got one on the Arrows right now.
Yeah. But I think that's the way to go about it though, is like have them kind of like sprinkled throughout the teams, sprinkled throughout the league. in MLR anyways, as opposed to like building a full, like they're saying they're going to build a full team of dudes that played football, basketball, and wrestled that can be in the pro 14, 15, 16, whatever it is.
Pro infinity.
The pro something number, or whatever it's going to be in 4 years. But it's like they want to build a team of a full squad. Like Mark Antonio left playing on the Arrows.
Derek, stick to the question, because you're starting to peel off into what I was worried about. We could talk about this for a good hour.
It's a podcast. That's what we're here for. We're supposed.
I know, but we've got a ton of other stuff we got to talk about. I'm keeping you in line.
All right. But like, okay. So the point of it being or whatever, it's like, yeah, I don't think. I think that's the time frame and the way that they're speaking about it is what gets a lot of people to just kind of roll their eyes at the whole idea.
For sure.
And like I do genuinely think that I don't think crossover athletes is like the answer to Canada USA's like issue, or I won't say issues, but I don't think it's like their answer to like player recruitment. Like I don't think we're just gonna start finding. I think the real answer to like how we can improve both the Eagles and Canada is like what the MLR is kind of doing. Like you got to like the academy setup and stuff. Like we were like talking like the Arrows, the Free Jacks. It's like they're building like academy programs that go down into like, has like kids when they're like 13, 14 years old can like get somewhat involved in like some sort of like line to get up to the Arrows, the Free Jacks, any of the other MLR teams that are also doing the exact same thing. But like I think that's what it is. It's like through like the MLR, like I think part of why you want it to be successful, why you want it to be on TV is so kids start seeing it and start being like, when they're 5 or 6 years old, being like, hey, mom and dad, I want to go play rugby. And I think that's what you need, right? Is like you need kids, you need people that have been playing since they were like 5.
Yeah.
Because like in all honesty, it's like that's what the countries that are good at rugby have. Right. It's like the All Blacks aren't recruiting guys that are like, hey, you couldn't make the New Zealand basketball team when you're 24. Like, want to try being an All Black?
But New Zealand doesn't have a sports program like the NCAA in New Zealand. Like,
no, it's true. Think about all the others. New Zealand's also a country that's smaller than Toronto and dominates a sport.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So it's
Stu, I'll get to you in just a second. I just want to go off of something Derek just said. And I agree with you. I think that the right method is putting these academy programs up. That being said, maybe this program being run by somebody else, I think there is a place for it. Like, yes, you're right.
People are sour about the Raptors leaving, or like you have
I think that they just don't have the best intentions.
You have an issue with like the coaches and stuff.
I think that their accelerated time frame and what they want to accomplish. What I would like to see is an auxiliary program of what they're running right now, but instead of trying to make a team that goes to the pro 16, make it so that way it's a feeder system to the MLR teams or to the national team.
They had like some confusing things about that though, didn't they? Weren't they kind of like they don't necessarily want to do, like I think that was the whole point, do they want anything to do with MLR?
They said that their big point about MLR is that they had too many domestic players in the league.
Yeah, I know.
That was their big thing, and that was their big thing about when they split off from MLR in the first place. Yeah. I think that there is a place for a program like this. I just don't think that it's run by the right people.
I think is it funny or ironic that they're like there's too many domestic players in or too many foreign players in Major League Rugby, so we're going to make a team of all American players
and then go to a foreign league,
to go become a team of entirely foreign players in another league. I don't know.
It can. I think it can be done well. Because
I'm not saying you can't train crossover athletes to be rugby players. I'm just saying, like, I don't think, like, I mean, if honestly, I think looking at if one of these guys becomes an Eagle, that's a rousing success for this program.
Yeah, like, listen, there's guys like Jason Marshall.
If there's guys like can make the MLR, like, that's even a success at that point. Like, I don't get how you like. It's just I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I'm also not gonna like diminish, like, hey man, introduce people to rugby, get people interested in it. If guys want to try it and think they have the athletic ability to somehow make it, I mean, I'm not gonna say don't try it, but like, yeah, I think the biggest issue is like the ridiculous timelines and stuff that they're kind of putting on it. And then I think there's a lot of people that were kind of left with a bad taste in their mouth with the way they left MLR too, and they probably deserve a little bit of that. And it's you're gonna have to take that criticism with it. So, but I think Canada USA ultimately, it's like this idea. I think that's the thing that annoys me sort of the most about it, is this, like, especially in part of the way that they were talking, was just like these guys are just so athletic, almost as like, yeah, if you're athletic you can just learn rugby. And I think that's part of the point, is it's like, why you need people playing. Like, we need to find a way to get kids playing earlier, right? Because it's like the one thing, it's like you can be the most athletic person in the world, right? But it's like the one thing I think that's the absolute hardest thing to teach anybody who is learning a new sport for the first time, regardless of what that sport is just the game sense and like that rugby IQ, which is like you can only pick up after like seeing it and playing it a bunch. To
Okay.
be like, we were talking to Jeff Hassler last week when he was explaining what he does when
We were doing exactly what I was worried about. We're getting into the tangent.
No, it's fine. It's a podcast. It's supposed to be tangents. But it was like, what he was saying though is like, when he was defending a yellow card, it's like he was talking about being able to identify what the offensive team was doing 3 to 4 phases before they try to do it. Right. And it's like, that's something that you can't just teach. That, okay. I guess you can teach it. You can coach.
Counterpoint to what you're saying.
It takes a while to learn. It takes a while to learn that aspect of the game too.
Counterpoint. Jason Marshall started playing rugby in 2009 after playing a little bit in high school.
Right.
He was the starting tight head prop in all 4 Canada's pool matches at the World Cup. He was a quarterback.
And he's
at university.
You also said he started playing rugby in high school, right?
Yeah, but high school rugby is different than playing in the World Cup.
But
and then wait. And then he went on to play for La Rochelle and also playing in the Pro D2. So yes, you are right, but I think that we are underestimating the ability that some of these guys that are coming out, like these are freaks that are coming out of college football and basketball programs. I think that if you're put into an environment where your only job is to just learn rugby for a year or however long it takes, you can get into an MLR team, and then you can then also get to the Eagles if you get the right athletes.
Oh, I'm not saying you can't do it. Like, obviously there's guys that have done it, but I'm also like, it is also, I think it's like, I still don't think it's like necessarily like the way to develop guys and stuff. Like, I mean, like, well, not that it's not the way to develop guys. I shouldn't say that. Obviously you can do it. I mean, obviously even like, guys like, Perry Baker, Carlin Owls and stuff too, right? Like, they played other sports before playing rugby. And I mean, they're a huge reason why the United States Sevens team became so successful. And they kind of learned that. But I think, like, what's the average age of the guys that are in the crossover program?
Like 21, 22.
That's the average age? Okay.
And then I think like there's a couple guys that are 25.
That's not. But by the time they want to be then playing in the Pro 16, they'll be in their mid to late 20s.
It's just
this is the issue I have, is that, and somebody I believe on Reddit pointed out this, is that if they really cared about developing rugby players, what they should be doing is focusing on now they said 13-year-olds, and that over 6 years, by the time they're 19, they will have not only the skills but also hopefully the maturity to be called up to the national squad. I'd say that may be a bit too early. I'd say probably like 16-year-olds, so that they're in their like early 20s by the time they be playing. I think it's also worth, having somebody, obviously not in the current climate, but when it is possible to travel freely again, going to New Zealand, going to like the boys' New Zealand school final, and even just going to like the team that loses the final, because they pretty much know at that point that their rugby journey could be over unless they're playing for like amateur and in the provincial competition, and then say, how would you like to sign this contract for 5 years? Come to Colorado, we will pay you board, we will pay you, I think what they said in the article was $1,500 a month. But like I said, their accommodation, their meals are all covered. And in 5 years, you will be able to play for the Eagles, provided that you remain in the United States.
Yeah, but that's not a crossover athlete, though. That's them. That's going out to finding a rugby player that's from a different country.
Exactly.
That's a completely different method of doing that.
I think what's Stussing that's what should happen instead of what's.
I think you probably get more successful results that way, or see if they have a American grandparent or parent, and if they'd like to.
What Canada's basically started doing now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like with Higgins and stuff like that.
At the same time, you said, Dan, we have a football player on the Arrow squad now. Admittedly, he has been playing rugby for, I believe, the last 4, or been playing amateur rugby at least for the last 4 years. He's obviously came through the Pacific Pride program as well. I believe this whole or even all these articles are just to get investors on board.
Oh, yeah, and we talked about this again also on the chat. Like that, like it's just bravado. It's look at our amazing program. Look what we want to do. Even in the article, it talks about how they're looking for sponsors. They're obviously gesturing to try and get people to pay attention to them. Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. I'm doing something cool.
I mean, yeah, we've just devoted all this time on our podcast to talking about it. So hey, it's working. It's working. At the very least, they're getting people to talk. But
I think what will probably happen if this does become a long-term program is that I don't think they'll get picked up by the Pro 16, because even though the Pro 16 wants money, the South African teams have ensured that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they will probably do is become a unattached academy team. So they will be able to be used in the same way as the Pacific Pride, in the sense of if Rugby USA wants like a warm-up game, or like the ability to play a few like combine fixtures or things like that, then you'll have these like the Colorado XOs come in and fill that role. But no, I want them to prove me wrong. I will, eat humble pie if they do enter the Pro 16, or if they somehow in 2027 win the Rugby World Cup. Fine. At this point in time, I cannot see it happen.
Like we said at the start, I think that's their biggest issue, just these ridiculous claims.
It's just the time frame,
that they can do things like join the Pro 14 or whatever. Like, I mean, even if like you can't, I don't think you can train guys that have, like you even said with your example of Marshall there, it's like he did play a little bit before deciding to make that transition and stuff. And it's like, I think you're taking guys that are completely brand new to the game and saying that they can compete at that level within 4 years is like, it's again,
a lot of it's just this bravado.
I mean, hey, there has been some, like, I mean, Jimmy Graham didn't start playing football until like he was like 23 or 24 or something. So
there's a certain U.S. hooker that did not start playing rugby until he was 20, and he is now the highest scoring hooker in Test rugby history.
It's true.
That is true. There's also...
Mighty Joe did not start playing rugby, like club rugby, until like he was 19, 20 years old. So it can be done.
Hey, like you can start late and stuff. It's just, but it's like,
how much better would he have been?
How much better would he be if he started when he was 15,
exactly.
or how much better would he be if he started when he was 5?
All right. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. I'm gonna give you guys each a Canadian signing to talk about, and we're gonna start with you, Stu. Luke Campbell is going to Old Glory DC. He's the first former Arrow to actually join another MLR club, which is a fun little stat for him to kind of hang on his wall. What can Old Glory expect from him?
He's only played 5 games for the Arrows, but did score a try against Colorado in that thrashing in the penultimate week of the regular season. I think we can expect a workhorse. I always feel like for guys in his position is that if they've had a quiet game, they've had a good game. In the fact that you're not, first of all, they're not picking up cards, always good for any player, but they're also, they're doing the job, they're securing the penalties, and then they're letting the kicker come up and score the points, or, getting the possession that will lead to a line out, or going through the phases. And, that's what you need and that's what you'll get in someone like Luke Campbell. I think DC are going to be like very happy. I mean, they've already got 2 Canadians on the team that I'm sure they're happy with already. So a third can only go in there. I think DC will be pretty happy once the season starts and they can see firsthand what he can do.
Now, Derek, Jake Ilnicki has also re-signed with Seattle. How does Canada benefit with Sears Duru and Ilnicki playing together and kind of building the chemistry in the front row? And it's a very unique opportunity. We've kind of seen it with the Arrows with Giuseppe Dutoit and Ben Lesage kind of building that chemistry together. Is there a similar situation kind of building in Seattle with those two?
I mean, I suppose the more you play with someone, the more accustomed to their play style and everything that you do get. Yeah, I mean, it's so, yeah, Seattle's got a good team, and their pack and the sea wall is a big part of what they bring to their game. So I think, yeah, it definitely is a benefit. I don't think it's any more or less beneficial than any of the other combinations of teammates that are spread out throughout the league. Because I think, with the signing of Luke Campbell, now we're up to 33, I think it's 33 Canadians on the American MLR teams, which I think is slightly more than the amount of Canadians that are actually on the Toronto Arrows now at that point. So everywhere has guys that are kind of playing with.
We've got Travis Larson moving from Old Glory to San Diego. I think he's just trying to collect as many jerseys as he can.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always, every league's always has the one guy that's just like the suitcase that just year to year different teams. So I mean, hey, if that's gonna be who you are, hey man, you're still playing pro rugby.
Yeah, still playing.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. Just go to whatever team's gonna pay you to play, man. It's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, I think Sears Duru, Ilnicki, I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what they can do in 2020 or 2021. What year is it? Oh my goodness, man. Time is a fake construct now. That's what I've learned last year. But it should be good. I think, like I said, I don't think it builds any more or less chemistry than any of the other combination of teammates, but I think maybe with their positions, kind of, if you had a Canadian hooker mixed in there, that would be interesting. Kind of like what I guess a couple of the formations that the Arrows could technically go with if they chose.
He used to have Barkwell before he retired.
They did used to have Barkwell. Yeah, that's true. Excellent point, Dan bringing up the facts on this now. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see him back. I'm excited to see all the Canadians back. I mean,
for sure.
We're kind of looking into this. I think I don't know. I don't think we talked about Michael Smith going to San Diego too. So that's a UBC guy. Handful of UBC guys, kind of like Fraser Hurst too, popping up in the league. And it's it's kind of cool to see. I think a lot of, I think there was kind of some talk or around the draft being if Canadian players aren't eligible for the draft, but then how many guys could potentially go if they were eligible. And I think you're kind of seeing it teams are showing a big interest in that Canadian university game, right? Because they're signing guys that played there. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think Ilnicki is just kind of going to be one of those other guys that he's played at 2 World Cups already. He's going to be, I think he's 28 years
28.
old. Yeah, so 28 years old, you're going to be at the very least, he's going to be 30 by the time the next World Cup rolls around. So, I mean, you're becoming one of, I guess, the veterans on this seems to be trending younger Canada team. So
yeah, he's got experience in New Zealand, Australia. He played in pro rugby. He played for the Saints. He played for the Falcons, Yorkshire Carnegie, and then finally made a home in Seattle. So he has been all over the place. I'm excited. He's one of my favorite players out west. All right, gentlemen. Well, that'll be it for tonight. We have a lot of exciting guests coming up, leading up to the preseason training camps, and then leading to the season. So, thank you everyone for listening. If you want to listen to more of our previous interviews, go to Rouge Rugby on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and leave us a review on any podcasts or YouTube platforms that you can. So that way our little podcast here gets a little bit more views. And guys, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the start of the season, and it's pretty exciting.
Real quick before we all go, anybody got some bold Six Nation predictions?
Wales to finish 5th or better.
I think
that's a bold claim. I think based on what I've learned from Stu's Welsh opinions here, I'm surprised they didn't think they'd finish 6th or better. But
I think Scotland's going to beat England.
I think Scotland's
going to beat England on Saturday.
That's bold. I think France wins the whole thing. I'll take my.
I'll go. That's bold.
I don't think that's bold. Yeah, I don't know if that's a bold one. I guess Italy's going to win a game. Or someone.
Ooh.
This will be the year. They're going to win a game. How about that? Italy will win.
Italy beat England. That's a bold.
Ooh, that's a very
Italy
bold.
to win.
And that's
the
also
Nation.
A fantastic prediction in the sense of it's fantastical. It's not real. So
let's just go all out. Italy wins the Six Nations. Why not? 20. It's been a
Grand Slam.
Why not have Grand Slam? Yeah, just steamrolls everybody.
Well, there you have it, guys. 2021 Grand Slam winners will be Italy.